The mop bucket rattled against the marble floor of Hallcrest Tower as Daniel Reyes gripped the application form with hands that had once signed multi-million-dollar contracts. 3 years ago, he wore a tailored suit in a boardroom just like the 120 floors above him. Tonight, he was applying to clean its toilets. He had exactly $41 in his checking account, a 6-year-old daughter waiting at a neighbor's apartment, and a lease that would end in 11 days if he didn't find work by sunset. He signed his name at the bottom of the janitorial application, unaware that upstairs, a woman was about to see that same name and feel the ground shift beneath her designer heels. If stories like this move you, stories about pride swallowed for love, about second chances arriving when we least expect them, take a moment right now to like this video. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Humanity Tales so you never miss a story that reminds you people can rise again. Daniel hadn't always mopped floors for a living. 5 years earlier, he was the founder of a logistics startup that promised to revolutionize small business shipping, and for a while it worked. Investors called him a prodigy. Magazines wanted his photo. His wife, Elena, used to joke that she'd married a future Forbes cover before he'd even made his first real profit. Then came the crash, not the market's fault, but a partner who forged signatures and vanished with the company's remaining capital, leaving Daniel to answer to furious investors and mounting debt alone. Within 8 months, the company was gone. Within a year, so was Elena, who died suddenly from a brain aneurysm on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon while folding laundry, leaving Daniel with a 4-year-old daughter, a mountain of legal bills, and a grief so heavy some mornings he couldn't remember how to stand up straight. He tried everything after that. He sold the house. He sold the car. He drove for rideshare apps until his old sedan broke down for good. He worked construction until a knee injury made lifting anything heavier than his daughter unbearable. Every job application asked about his employment gap, and every interviewer's face changed the moment they realized he was the same Daniel Reyes whose failed company had once made headlines. Failure, he learned, followed a person like a shadow no resume could hide. So when he saw the janitorial listing at Hallcrest Corp., no interview required beyond a basic form, immediate start, benefits included, he swallowed what was left of his pride and applied anyway, because his daughter Mia needed shoes that fit and food that wasn't the same instant noodles 3 nights running. He didn't know that Hallcrest Corp's CEO was a woman named Victoria Hallcrest, and he certainly didn't know that 11 years earlier, before she inherited her father's company and rebuilt it from a struggling regional firm into a billion-dollar enterprise, she had been an unpaid intern at Daniel's very first startup, the one where he'd taught her everything she knew about supply chain strategy, stayed late helping her prepare her first investor pitch, and never once made her feel small for asking too many questions. She had lost track of him after the company collapsed, hearing only fragments, that he'd gone under, that his wife had passed, that he'd disappeared from the industry entirely. She'd searched for him quietly over the years, feeling she owed him a debt no title could repay, but Daniel Reyes was not an easy man to find once he'd stopped wanting to be found. That morning, Victoria sat in her glass-walled office on the 40th floor reviewing new hire paperwork her HR director had left for her signature, mostly routine approvals she rarely read line by line. But something made her pause on the 3rd page. A name. Daniel Reyes. Her pen hovered above the paper, her coffee going cold beside her, as she read the address listed, a modest apartment complex, 2 bus transfers from downtown, and the position applied for, janitorial staff, night shift. For a long moment, Victoria simply sat there, staring at the letters of a name that had shaped the entire trajectory of her career, unable to reconcile the mentor she remembered with the job title now attached to him. Her assistant knocked twice before she managed to say, in a voice smaller than the one she used in board meetings, "Get me his file. All of it. Now." Downstairs, Daniel had already started his first shift, pushing a cart of cleaning supplies past offices with views he used to take for granted in his own company, back when the world still believed in him. He worked methodically, quietly, the way he approached everything now, without complaint, because complaint was a luxury he'd stopped affording himself. Around 10 that night, exhausted and aching, he sat on an overturned bucket in a stairwell and allowed himself, just for a moment, to cry the way he never let himself cry in front of Mia. He whispered an apology to Alina, the way he often did in private, promising her that their daughter would never know how close they'd come to losing everything, that he would find a way, even if that way was a mop and a name tag that said Daniel R. instead of founder and CEO. He didn't notice the elevator doors open behind him. He didn't hear the soft click of expensive heels stop a few feet away. When he finally looked up, wiping his face quickly, he saw a woman in a lavender blazer staring at him with an expression he couldn't quite place, not pity, but something rawer, something that looked dangerously close to grief and gratitude tangled together. It took him several seconds to recognize the sharp eyes beneath the polished exterior, the same eyes that used to stay late in his cramped office asking question after question about margins and contracts. "Victoria," he said, his voice cracking on a name he hadn't spoken aloud in over a decade. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she crossed the space between them, sat down on the cold stairwell floor beside him in her tailored suit without a second thought for the fabric, and said the only thing that mattered, that she had never forgotten what he'd done for her, that she had spent years searching for a way to repay a debt she didn't know how to name, and that he would never push another mop through this building again unless he chose to. Over the weeks that followed, Victoria didn't simply hand Daniel a corner office out of guilt or nostalgia. She understood, from everything he'd taught her, that real respect meant giving someone a genuine chance to prove himself, not a hollow gift. She brought him in as a strategic consultant on Hallcrest's supply chain division, the exact expertise that had once made him a rising star, and watched as the same brilliant mind that had built a company from nothing began, slowly and carefully, to remember what it felt like to be trusted again. Daniel struggled at first, haunted by the fear that he'd disappoint her, that failure was simply who he'd become. There were nights he sat in his new office long after everyone had gone home, terrified of the possibility of losing something again, of letting Mia believe in stability only to have it collapse a second time. But Victoria never let him forget that the man who once stayed late for her, who once believed in a nervous intern nobody else took seriously, deserved the same belief in return. 6 months later, Daniel stood at the front of a conference room on the 40th floor, presenting a restructuring plan that would save Hallcrest Corp millions in shipping inefficiencies, his hand steady this time, his voice sure. Mia, now 7, had started calling Victoria Aunt Vic over weekend dinners the two families now shared, unaware of how close her father had once come to disappearing beneath the weight of grief and shame. Daniel kept his old janitor name tag in his desk drawer, not as a reminder of humiliation, but as a reminder that dignity was never about the title on a badge. It was about the quiet courage to keep showing up for the people who needed him, even when the world had stopped believing he still had something to offer. If this story touched something in you, if it reminded you that no one is too far gone for a second chance, that the smallest acts of kindness we offer today can return to save us years later, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear that their story isn't over yet. And before you go, do us one small favor. Comment the word "believe" below if you made it to the end of this story, so we know how many hearts we reached today. Because sometimes, the lowest point in a person's life is not the end of their story. It's simply the quiet, unglamorous chapter right before everything changes.